You go.
All right, so imagine for a second that you could have your dream job. Doctor, lawyer, journalist, the possibilities are really endless. Now imagine that you were somehow so skilled in your field that you could enter your dream job right out of high school. Seems a bit far-fetched, but it was reality for high school basketball players across the country until 2005. According to the NBA, 32 high school basketball players have been drafted to the league in its history, with almost all of them coming since the millennium. In 2005, however, the league decided to curb this practice when it renegotiated its collective bargaining agreement with the players. Today, in order to be eligible for the NBA, athletes must be at least 18 years of age and one full NBA season removed from high school graduation. Now, rather than skipping college and going straight to the NBA from high school, players must make the decision whether to go to college or to play basketball overseas until they become eligible. So overall, there are three main issues in the NBA eligibility controversy. The first is whether or not the current rules are unfair to high school athletes. The second is whether or not the proposed rules would lead athletes to de-emphasize education in favor of basketball. And the third is whether the proposed rules would lead to an influx of players not yet ready for NBA life. So again, just to recap, the players are for the change. They want to be able to go in from high school, and the league wants to keep the rules the same and keep the current eligibility rules. So the first issue in this controversy is over whether or not the current rules are fundamentally unfair to high school athletes. The players argue yes, claiming that no such rules exist in other sports, and that they're suggesting that this applies to you. And think about what you know about the Sherman Antitrust Act. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, but there's a part of this act that says employer-employee negotiations conducted through collective bargaining aren't subject to antitrust law. And like I said before, the NBA collectively bargains with its players, so what this means is that the players legally cannot bring up a suit against the NBA saying that the eligibility rules are unfair or illegal. That's just the nature of how the act works. Now, in terms of pay, an article in the Santa Clara Law Review found that players drafted after the rule change actually make more money in their first 5 years in the league than players drafted before. Now, this is the complete opposite sort of pay gap that players claim. The league then argues that the players drafted after the rule change actually made more than the players drafted before. So the first issue in this NBA eligibility controversy deals with the current rules and whether they are fair or unfair. The last two issues deal with the proposed policy and the effects that it will have on the players and the league in general. So the second issue in the eligibility controversy is over whether or not the proposed rules would lead high school athletes to de-emphasize their education and focus solely on basketball. The league argues yes, claiming that reverting back to the old rules would create a false sense of hope in a lot of high school basketball players. Namely, those who don't do as well in school would drop the idea of going to college altogether and focus solely on basketball. And while this may work for a very, very select few, most players don't make it to the NBA no matter how hard they work. And there is data to support this. A study done by the NCAA found that 0.03% of all high school basketball players will ever make it to the NBA in their lifetime. This isn't even play a game, this is just to make it to the NBA. And with about, on average, 550,000 high school basketball players in the United States every year across all four classes, that amounts to about 150 people. So not many at all. The chances are very slim, and the NBA wants players to focus on education first. The players don't necessarily agree with this, however. They argue that the proposed rules wouldn't lead them to de-emphasize their education because they argue that the current rules already do in their own way. They argue that they look at past NBA drafts, and they tend to argue that as we have sort of gone further and further since 2005 when the rules were reversed, fewer and fewer of the draftees are four-year college graduates. In fact, in 2014, only 30% of the draftees were four-year college graduates, and that's an all-time low. Rather, they argue that rather than staying in college for 4 years, players prefer a one-and-done approach, where they go to college for a year until they become eligible for the NBA, and then they'll skip college after that and go right to the league. And under this approach, education is pretty much thrown out the window. So in order for a college freshman to be eligible to play for his team, he need only pass 2 classes in the fall semester. And if this player knows that he's not going to be staying for any more college after that year, that he's going to go to the NBA once he becomes eligible, he's not even going to show up to class because it doesn't matter, he's leaving anyway. So the players argue that the proposed rules wouldn't really do anything with respect to education because the emphasis right now isn't even on educating. And the final issue in this eligibility controversy is over whether or not the proposed rules would lead to an influx of players not yet ready for life as an NBA player. The league argues yes, claiming that 17 and 18-year-olds are both underskilled and not yet mature enough to survive in the NBA. They often cite the case of a player by the name of Jeremy Tyler, who in 2009 graduated high school and rather than going to college, signed a professional contract in Israel to play basketball there. He was one of the first players to ever do this, skip college and go straight to the goes somewhere else. And sort of the Jeremy Tyler case showed us that the league might have some merits in their argument here. Tyler, although he was of great athletic ability, was underskilled even to compete in the Israeli professional league. Off the court, he had trouble as well, frequently showing up late to practice, missing interviews, and feuding with teammates and coaches. But now when you think about it, like, you can't necessarily blame him, because think about if you were 17 and 18-year-olds in your dream jobs, you would certainly have a lot of struggles, both within the job itself and sort of on some of the exterior things. The players, on the other hand, don't necessarily agree with this. They think that as 17 and 18-year-olds, they can make it in the NBA, and there is some evidence to support this. They like to think back to the early 2000s when sort of the number of high school basketball players in the league was at its peak, and they argue that some